Liars don't just deceive you with answers, they trap you with questions. The kind that seem harmless on the surface, but are designed to disarm your instincts and lower your guard. By the time you realize what's happening, they've already mapped out your weaknesses. Not all lies come with obvious warnings. In fact, the most calculated manipulators hide behind charm, empathy, and curiosity. They ask things that feel personal, sincere, even flattering, but they're really just fishing for control. In this video, we'll uncover 5 specific questions that liars and manipulators use to fake closeness while quietly testing your boundaries. These aren't just tricks, they're psychological tactics, often used in friendships, relationships, and at work. If you've ever looked back and asked yourself, "How did I fall for that?" This is the video you needed before it happened. Each question we break down will show you exactly how false trust is built and how to spot it before it collapses. This isn't just about seeing lies. It's about reclaiming your clarity, your peace, and your self-trust. That's what Stoic philosophy teaches: calm awareness over blind reaction. Ready to see the game they've been playing? Let's begin. Question 1. Don't you trust me? When someone looks you in the eye and says, "Don't you trust me?" it might sound like a plea for connection. But more often than not, it's something else entirely. That phrase isn't always about trust. It's about control. It's a subtle attempt to shift the burden of proof onto you, to make you second-guess your instincts instead of questioning the person who triggered them. Manipulative people rarely show their hand directly. Instead of threats or overt lies, they rely on emotional tension, on the unspoken pressure that arises when they twist something as noble as trust into a weapon. They make you feel like you're the one creating the problem, simply for wanting clarity or truth. And that's where the real danger lies. Because the moment you start defending your right to doubt, you're already losing ground. A manipulator doesn't want honest questions. They want submission disguised as loyalty. So when they say, "Don't you trust me?" what they're really doing is hijacking the conversation, pulling it away from facts, and steering it toward your feelings. Now suddenly you feel guilty. You feel like the one who's broken the bond, and they stand there quietly claiming moral high ground they never earned. This is not just miscommunication. It's emotional misdirection. And it works especially well on people who are kind, empathetic, and peace-loving. People who don't want to cause conflict. People who would rather carry discomfort silently than risk hurting someone else. And that's exactly what manipulators count on: the quiet collapse of your confidence under the weight of manufactured guilt. You start to wonder if you're overreacting, if maybe you're just being too suspicious. So you back off, you apologize, you drop the question. And just like that, they've won. Not because they had truth on their side, but because they manipulated your conscience into silence. But Stoic philosophy teaches a better way. Epictetus reminded us that no one can rob us of our judgment unless we surrender it ourselves. That means you always have the power to pause, to step back, and to see what's happening with clear eyes. You don't need to respond with aggression or cold detachment. Instead, you respond with reason. When someone tries to corner you emotionally, the most powerful answer is calm honesty. You don't need to yell. You don't need to justify. You just need to stand firm in your right to understand what you're being asked to trust and whether it has been truly earned. Because trust in its true form doesn't come with ultimatums. It isn't something you're forced to give. It's something that grows when there's honesty, consistency, and mutual respect. If someone is trying to rush you past that or guilt you into silence, they're not building trust. They're undermining it. True strength isn't in how loudly you speak. It's in how quietly you stay grounded. Stoicism is not about shutting people out. It's about refusing to abandon your clarity just to make someone else comfortable. Your intuition matters. Your boundaries matter. And when someone tries to twist trust into a guilt trip, it's not your job to prove anything. It's your job to see clearly, respond wisely, and protect the one thing no one else can guard for you: your peace of mind. Question 2. Why would I lie? One of the most deceptive tactics a liar can use is posing a question that sounds innocent, but is meant to silence you rather than invite discussion. When someone looks you in the eye and asks, "Why would I lie?" it's rarely a genuine inquiry. It's a psychological maneuver carefully crafted to make you feel unreasonable for even suspecting dishonesty. This question isn't about providing clarity, it's about planting doubt. Not doubt in them, but in yourself. It's meant to put you on the defensive to make you feel guilty for even considering that something might be off. And that's what makes it so dangerous. It exploits your good nature and your desire to give people the benefit of the doubt. People who use this phrase aren't offering truth. They're offering distraction. They want to pull attention away from their behavior and place it squarely on your judgment. Suddenly, it's no longer about the facts or your concerns. It's about how unfair or insulting your suspicion must be. And if you're someone who values kindness, peace, or trust, that emotional bait can be hard to resist. But here's the truth. People don't always lie for obvious reasons. They don't need to have something major to gain. Sometimes they lie to save face, to avoid discomfort, or because deception has become second nature. Just because you can't see the motive doesn't mean the manipulation isn't happening. Imagine sitting across from a polished professional who claims decades of experience. Their tone is calm, their manner reassuring. They tell you everything is above board. You ask one cautious question, and they respond with that loaded phrase, "Why would I lie? I've built my whole life on integrity." It sounds noble. It feels convincing. But it's designed to end the conversation, not deepen it. And if you let that moment pass, if you suppress your discomfort to avoid appearing accusatory, you risk walking away from your own instincts. That's often where the real damage occurs. Not just in the outcome, but in the betrayal of your better judgment. Stoic wisdom offers a different approach. Marcus Aurelius didn't tell us to trust reputations. He told us to trust what is right, to speak only what is true. Epictetus taught that we should not be disturbed by external impressions, but instead examine them with reason. That means we must question not just what's being said, but how and why it's being said. The Stoic approach cuts through false assurances. It reminds us that credibility is not built on personality. It's built on alignment between words and reality. If someone reacts defensively when asked a fair question, that tells you more than their answer ever could. And let's be clear, asking for clarity isn't disrespect. It's responsibility. It's wisdom in action. Honest people aren't offended by questions, they welcome them, because truth is not threatened by scrutiny. But deception recoils when confronted. We often fall into the trap of thinking that lies must be supported by clear motives, that if there's no visible reason to deceive, then no deception exists. But human behavior doesn't follow perfect logic. Some people lie for attention, some lie to test boundaries, and some lie simply because they know others won't call them out. If you wait for the perfect excuse to justify your doubt, you're already giving your trust away too easily. Stoicism doesn't teach us to be suspicious. It teaches us to stay grounded in clarity, to remain firm when something doesn't sit right, even if the person in front of us seems respectable or sincere. So the next time someone hits you with that line, Why would I lie? Don't let it shake your judgment. You don't need to accuse. You don't need to confront with hostility. But you do need to keep thinking clearly. Because real integrity doesn't flinch under honest questions. And when someone tries to make you feel guilty for asking, it's a sign that you're closer to the truth than they want you to be. Trust should never be demanded. It should be demonstrated. And when it's not, your silence is not required. Your discernment is. Question 3. Can you keep a secret? There's a form of manipulation so subtle that it often passes as connection. It doesn't come with demands or threats. It comes with lowered voices, a shared glance, and a question that sounds more like an invitation than a trap. Can you keep a secret? At first it feels flattering, like you're being let in on something exclusive. Like trust is being handed to you. But underneath that moment of perceived closeness lies a hidden burden you didn't choose. What that question really does is pull you into an unspoken agreement. Not one based on truth or consent, but on emotional leverage. You didn't get to ask what the secret is first. You didn't get to weigh whether it aligns with your values. You're just expected to nod to agree to hold your tongue. That's the trap. Not through force, but through implication, that keeping quiet is a show of loyalty, that speaking up would make you disloyal. It's not about truth. It's about complicity. It's about coercing your silence before you even understand what you're agreeing to. This is where ethical lines begin to blur. Not because someone asks you to lie outright, but because they've wrapped their request in intimacy and trust. Suddenly, you're part of something you never asked to be part of. The emotional pressure builds, not because the secret is inherently damaging, but because your conscience is now involved. You're not just carrying information, you're carrying a conflict between your values and your desire to protect the bond you think you've been offered. Think of someone like Rachel, who worked in an office where personal relationships blurred the boundaries of professionalism. One day, a colleague approached her in confidence, insisting he could only share what he knew if she promised to keep it quiet. Without thinking, Rachel agreed. What followed wasn't harmless. He disclosed serious misconduct within the company, something Rachel knew crossed the line. But now, she felt trapped. Bound not by contract, but by emotional loyalty. Speaking out would make her the betrayer, but staying silent made her complicit. That's the real cost of agreeing to secrecy without discernment. You don't just carry someone else's burden, you compromise your own integrity in the process. Stoic philosophy speaks directly to moments like this. Seneca reminded us that our inner character, our discipline, is what allows us to rise above temptation, pressure, and emotional manipulation. That means learning how to pause, to evaluate, and to hold firm to what's right, even when someone is using your kindness or trustworthiness against you. Being asked to keep a secret isn't wrong in itself, but being manipulated into silence before understanding what that secret means, that's where your clarity must intervene. Not every confidence is sacred. Not every whisper is worth your peace. Stoicism doesn't ask you to be heartless. It asks you to be principled. Rachel's real mistake wasn't hearing the secret. It was giving away her agreement too quickly, without first checking whether it aligned with her values. She mistook false loyalty for trust, and ended up carrying months of anxiety, constantly questioning whether she had done the right thing. That erosion of self-trust is the slowest form of damage and the hardest to repair. The next time someone leans in and quietly asks if you can keep a secret, stop. Don't answer right away. Don't accept the emotional bait. Instead, ask yourself the real question. Does this request reflect the kind of person I want to be? If the answer is no, then you owe no one your silence. The truth deserves light, and your peace of mind deserves protection. When secrecy becomes a tool of control instead of trust, the strongest thing you can do isn't to argue or confront. It's simply to hold your ground and not be drawn in. That's what Stoic discipline is all about: living with clarity, acting with integrity, and never mistaking pressure for principle. Question 4. Who told you that? Why is it that the moment you bring up something uncomfortable, something honest, the first thing out of their mouth is, "Who told you?" That not is it true. Not "let's talk about it," but a question that instantly redirects the spotlight off of them and onto you. It may sound like curiosity, like an innocent question, but it's not. It's strategy. It's control. That question isn't about clarity. It's about power. It's meant to derail the conversation and recenter the dynamic around secrecy, not accountability. What happens next is subtle but deliberate. The issue at hand, the truth you're trying to confront, fades into the background. Now, you're the one being interrogated. Your sources, your loyalties, your right to know suddenly become the problem. You're no longer holding someone accountable. You're defending your access to information. The burden of proof has quietly shifted. This manipulation is far more common than most people realize, especially when someone has something to hide. Instead of addressing the core issue, they stir up drama around the origin of the truth. They attack the messenger. They sow suspicion. They hope that if they make enough noise around how you found out, no one will look too closely at what you found out. The goal: to create confusion, to make you doubt yourself, to make you question whether you had any business knowing in the first place. And the more calmly or confidently they ask who told you, that the more convincing it seems. But underneath that calm exterior is fear. The fear of exposure, the fear of consequence. A perfect, real-world example: Lance Armstrong, a champion admired across the globe. Whenever the whispers of doping started to get louder, he didn't confront the facts. He went after the sources. He turned attention away from evidence and toward people's credibility. "Where's this coming from?" became his armor. And for years, it worked. People hesitated. They focused on the politics instead of the truth. And in that fog, deception thrived. That's the danger of this tactic. It doesn't deny the truth directly. It distracts from it. It turns a moral issue into a loyalty game. It forces you to choose sides, even when the only side that should matter is the truth itself. If you've ever found yourself in that moment hesitating, wondering if you're overstepping just by asking, you're not alone. It's a mind game, and it works precisely because it exploits your integrity, your desire to be fair, your fear of causing unnecessary conflict. But Stoic philosophy cuts through that noise. Epictetus said, "Seek not the favor of the crowd. It is rarely earned by honest means." That wisdom still holds. People of character don't worry about who said what. They care about whether something is true. They don't need to guard their reputation by shifting the blame. They meet the truth, however difficult, with clarity. When someone dodges a serious issue by asking, "Who told you?" that they reveal more than they intend. They show they're more interested in controlling the narrative than correcting their actions. That question isn't about resolving conflict. It's about avoiding it. And your role in that moment is not to unravel the politics of who said what. Your job is to hold steady, to keep the focus where it belongs, on what's right, not on who whispered it first. Because character isn't shown when someone's being admired, it's shown when they're being confronted. When they're forced to choose between facing truth or casting blame. So the next time someone tries to flip the script on, you don't fall into the trap. Don't apologize for knowing what you know. You don't owe anyone the name of the messenger, only your commitment to truth. And if you've ever been in that position, when someone tried to shift the attention away from their actions and toward your information, what did you do? What do you wish you had said? Share your experience in the comments. Your story might help someone else recognize the game and refuse to play it. Because the truth doesn't need protection, just someone brave enough to hold it steady. Question 5. Don't you remember? What do you do when someone insists that you agreed to something you know deep down never happened? At first you pause. You scan your memory. You try to stay rational. But in that brief silence, in that tiny crack of uncertainty, a seed is planted. And that seed isn't just about confusion, it's about control. The phrase, "don't you remember," sounds innocent, even casual. But when used with intent, it becomes a psychological weapon. It's not simply a question, it's an accusation disguised as concern. And in the wrong hands, it's the doorway to something much more insidious: gaslighting. Gaslighting isn't just the act of lying. It's the deliberate reshaping of your perception. It's not about winning a debate. It's about slowly making you believe that your ability to think clearly and remember accurately is flawed. Over time, this tactic doesn't just wear down your confidence. It rewrites your reality. It usually starts subtly. Someone close to you, a partner, a colleague, a friend asserts that you agreed to something, supported something, or even said something that you know contradicts your values. But instead of listening when you question it, they respond with calm certainty and a look of surprise, as if you are the one who's being irrational. They don't shout. They don't force. Instead, they act as though your disbelief is the problem. Their tone stays steady, almost pitying. And the implication is chilling. If you can't even remember this, how can you trust yourself? Now you're in unfamiliar territory. Your memory starts to feel unreliable. You begin second-guessing not just this moment, but others. You ask yourself, have I forgotten more than I think? And that's exactly what the manipulator wants. Because once you stop trusting your own perception, you start leaning on theirs. The most dangerous part of this is how natural it feels to fall into. You want to believe the best in others. You don't want to cause conflict. You want to be reasonable. And in trying to be fair, you lose sight of the fact that you're being played. Slowly but surely, you begin to shrink in your own mind. Let's ground this with a familiar example. Imagine you're in a long-standing relationship. One day, your partner confidently reminds you of a major life decision. The two of you supposedly made together a decision you're certain you never agreed to. Maybe it's a financial move, a career change, or something that alters the direction of your life. You push back surprised, but instead of engaging in dialogue, they hit you with a calm, pointed question. Don't you remember you were excited about it? They go on to describe the moment in vivid detail. Where you were, what you were doing, what you said. They sound sincere, convincing, but you still don't remember any of it. Now you're not just confused, you're shaken. And that's where gaslighting works best, when your confidence is weakened just enough to make you surrender the truth of your own experience. This is the quiet erosion of self-trust. The kind that doesn't explode, it wears you down over time. Eventually, you stop pushing back. Not because you believe them, but because you no longer believe in yourself. And that is precisely the goal. Stoic philosophy offers a different path. It doesn't tell you to fight back with anger or drama. It teaches you to anchor yourself internally, to strengthen the part of you that cannot be manipulated. Marcus Aurelius said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." Realize this, and you will find strength. In situations like these, that power means holding tight to your perception, even when someone else tries to unseat it. A Stoic doesn't rely on someone else's version of the story. They trust the clarity of their own mind. They reflect. They document. They remain composed. And when the facts feel slippery, they turn to what's verifiable: written notes, calendars, past decisions, patterns of behavior, not emotions or pressure. The point isn't to win every argument. It's to maintain your grip on reality. To know that just because someone speaks with confidence doesn't mean they speak the truth. Many manipulators learn that conviction is more persuasive than fact. That tone can overpower memory. But a Stoic sees through that. If someone repeatedly makes you question your reality, not through evidence, but through pressure, it's time to pause. Step back. Get grounded. You don't need to raise your voice. You don't need to prove anything in the heat of the moment. You just need to remember your memory, your thoughts, your inner clarity. They belong to you, and they are not for sale. Gaslighting thrives in silence. It feeds on your hesitation. But when you begin to reflect deeply, to track your own experience, to stand by what you know, you start to reclaim your power. Not just in conversation, but in life. The people who manipulate your memory aren't interested in understanding, they're interested in dominance. And the best defense isn't confrontation. It's awareness, reflection, and the quiet resolve not to be pulled away from your own truth. So the next time someone looks at you and says, "Don't you remember?" take a breath. Don't answer right away. Ask yourself, do I actually not remember, or am I being pressured to forget? There's a difference, and knowing that difference is the beginning of freedom. If this resonates with you, if you've ever walked away from a conversation wondering how you ended up doubting something you knew was true, know that you're not alone. You're not broken. You're not forgetful. You've just been pushed to question yourself. But that ends here. Reclaim your mind. Trust your clarity. Stand in your truth even if your voice trembles. Because once you protect your perception, you've already taken back the most important kind of power, the power over yourself. This video exposed one of the most subtle but dangerous manipulation tactics when someone says, "Don't you remember?" to make you question your own reality. What seems like a simple question can actually be a form of gaslighting, used to plant doubt, weaken your confidence, and slowly take control over your perception. But with Stoic awareness, you can recognize the patterns, stay grounded in your truth, and protect your mind from emotional manipulation. Thank you for watching. If this message resonated with you, let us know your thoughts in the comments. Your insight might help someone else recognize the same pattern. And don't forget to subscribe for more content that sharpens your awareness and strengthens your inner clarity. Stay grounded, stay strong.